The flight attendant smirked as she forced the man off the plane, all over a simple hat. But when the flight landed safely, the truth hit her hard. And what happened next? She wished she'd never crossed him. Before we dive deeper, drop a comment below. Where are you watching from? The morning began like any other on the flight from New Orleans to Alaska. Passengers boarded, stowing their carry-ons in the overhead bins as flight attendants moved through the cabin with practiced efficiency, offering polite greetings. Among them was Evelyn Johnson, a seasoned flight attendant known for her professionalism and firm adherence to protocol. She carried out her duties with quiet confidence, ensuring everything ran smoothly, until Evelyn noticed him, a man in his mid-40s, dressed neatly, sitting quietly in economy. At first glance, he seemed like any other passenger. But then she saw it. The bright red baseball cap on his head, bold as a warning sign. In bold letters, it read, "Make America Great Again." Evelyn. To her, this wasn't just a hat. It was a message, a statement she couldn't ignore. The man, completely unaware of her reaction, simply adjusted his cap, settled into his seat, and flipped open a magazine. He looked relaxed, unbothered. And that only made Evelyn angrier. As Evelyn moved down the aisle serving drinks, her eyes kept locking onto that red hat. It might as well have been flashing neon. When she reached his row, she paused, drink tray in hand, and couldn't resist commenting. "Interesting fashion choice," she said, her voice carrying just enough for others to hear. The sarcasm in her tone was hard to miss. The man barely looked up from his magazine. "Thanks," he replied casually. "It's just a hat." "Just a hat?" Evelyn's jaw tightened. That simple response somehow made it worse. To her, it was anything but just a hat. That hat was a slap in the face, a challenge she couldn't walk away from, a fire lit inside her chest, demanding action. Evelyn stormed back to the galley, her face flushed with anger. "You won't believe what I just saw," she hissed to the other flight attendants. "Some guy out there is wearing one of those red MAGA hats like it's nothing. How can people just parade that kind of thing around?" The senior attendant, Lisa, put a calming hand on Evelyn's arm. "Take a breath," she said quietly. "We're not the fashion police here. Just do your job and let it be." "Let it be?" Evelyn snapped, pulling her arm away. "Are you serious? That's not just some random hat. It's practically a hate symbol. We have policies against this kind of thing." Her voice had gotten louder, causing a few nearby passengers to glance toward the galley. Lisa lowered her voice to a warning tone. "Evelyn, drop it. Now." But Evelyn's mind was made up. Ignoring her co-worker's warning, Evelyn turned on her heel and marched back down the aisle, her sharp footsteps echoing through the cabin. She came to a stop right in front of the man with the hat, planting her feet firmly. Crossing her arms, she looked down at him with her most authoritative flight attendant stare. "Sir," she said in her best no-nonsense voice, "Sir, I need to ask you to remove your hat. It's making other passengers uncomfortable." The man didn't react right away. He carefully closed his magazine and met her gaze with surprising calm. When he finally spoke, his voice was polite but firm. "I appreciate your concern, but I'll be keeping it on." Evelyn's jaw tightened at his refusal. Her voice turned icy. "Sir, this is your final warning. That hat violates airline policy. Remove it now or you will be removed from this flight." A hush fell over the cabin. You could have heard a peanut drop. Passengers froze, some exchanging shocked looks, others leaning in to whisper to their seatmates. The tension was so thick you could almost touch it. Without another word, the man calmly closed his magazine. He stood up slowly, gathered his things with steady hands, and walked toward the exit with quiet dignity. His silence spoke louder than any argument. As Evelyn watched the man walk away, she expected triumph to flood her veins. But instead, a cold unease settled in her chest. He hadn't yelled, hadn't even argued. His quiet dignity made her victory feel hollow. Shoving the feeling aside, she straightened her uniform. She'd done the right thing. Hadn't she? Someone had to take a stand. The plane doors closed. As the engine started roaring, Evelyn moved through the cabin with practiced efficiency, her professional smile back in place. But this wasn't over, not by a long shot. The biggest shock was still waiting at Alaska Airport. As the plane landed in Alaska, Evelyn stood by the exit with her chin held high. While passengers shuffled past her, she felt proud, convinced she'd done more than just her job today. She'd taken a stand. made a difference. In her mind, she hadn't just followed the rules. She defended what was right. The satisfaction warmed her as she bid passengers goodbye. Little did she know, her real challenge wasn't in the skies. It was waiting for her on solid ground. As the last passenger stepped off the plane, Evelyn gathered her things with a satisfied smile. She could already picture herself telling this story later, how she'd stood her ground against that difficult passenger. It would make for a great conversation over drinks with her crewmates. Humming to herself, she double-checked her checklist. Just another successful flight in the books. Evelyn's confident stride faltered as she neared the gate. There, blocking her path like a storm cloud, stood Tom Donovan, the airline's chief operating officer. Dressed in his signature Navy suit, he looked like a CEO straight out of a magazine. But his stone-cold expression told Evelyn this wasn't a casual meeting. When their eyes locked, her stomach dropped. "Evelyn!" His voice cut through the airport noise like ice. No hello, no small talk, just my office, now. It wasn't an invitation. It was a command. Evelyn followed Tom through the terminal under the weight of curious stares. Every step made her stomach twist tighter. He led her to a stark, windowless office, the kind of place where careers went to die. Before she could even sit properly, Tom fired his first shot. "Do you have any idea who you just kicked off that plane?" Evelyn lifted her chin. "Just some troublemaker in an offensive hat," she said, her voice steadier than she felt. "I was protecting our passengers." Tom slammed a file on the desk. "Let me educate you," he said, leaning in. "That troublemaker was Will Martin, as in the man who signs all our paychecks, owner itself of this very airlines." The air left Evelyn's lungs. Silence swallowed the room whole. Evelyn felt the blood rush from her face. Her hands went cold. "Wait, what?" The words came out in a shaky whisper, barely audible. Tom didn't blink. "That man you just embarrassed? The one you threw off the plane over a baseball cap?" He let the question hang in the air for a heartbeat. That was Will Martin, our CEO, the actual owner of this airline. Evelyn's stomach dropped like the plane had hit an air pocket. All her earlier certainty vanished, leaving nothing but cold, sickening realization. Her mouth opened, but no sound came out. The excuses, the justifications, all stuck in her throat like a lump she couldn't swallow. Tom didn't wait for her to process the shock. Leaning across the desk, his voice turned deadly quiet, the kind of calm that comes before a storm. "Listen carefully," he said. "This wasn't about company policy. This was about you. Your bias, your unprofessionalism." Each word landed like a hammer. "That man, he was reading a magazine. You're the one who caused a scene." Evelyn's mouth opened. "Don't." Tom's hand shot up, cutting her off. "Save it for the CEO, but understand this. When you meet him," a pause, "your job won't be the only thing on the line." A silent nod was all she could manage. Tom swung the door open with a silent command. As Evelyn stepped forward, the hallway suddenly felt like a tunnel, squeezing tighter with every step. Her chest constricted. This wasn't just embarrassment anymore. This was career-ending territory. The realization hit like delayed turbulence. That quiet man reading his magazine hadn't been the problem. She had. And this storm, it was only beginning. The elevator doors opened to a silent office high above the city. Evelyn's pulse hammered in her ears as she stepped inside. Everything here gleamed. The glass walls, the polished table, the cold perfection of it all. And there he was, Will Martin. No baseball cap now, just a tailored suit and a gaze that pinned her in place. Sit, not angry, not even stern, just waiting. Evelyn's knees almost buckled as she took the seat. The plush leather might as well have been a block of ice. Somewhere in the back of her mind, a voice whispered, "This isn't a meeting, it's a verdict." Will steepled his fingers, his voice deceptively calm. "Walk me through this morning's flight report, in your own words." Evelyn's mouth went dry. The words tumbled out, something about passenger comfort, company policies, doing what was right. But with each sentence, her justification sounded weaker, even to herself. She could hear her voice growing shaky as she spoke. Will didn't move, didn't blink, just watched her with the quiet focus of a predator observing its prey. His silence was worse than any interruption. The silence stretched between them until Will finally spoke. His voice was calm, but with an edge that made Evelyn's palms sweat. "Let me ask you something," he said, leaning forward. "Why do you think I fly coach sometimes?" Evelyn could only shake her head, her throat suddenly tight. I do it to see the truth, Will continued. Not what managers report, but what actually happens inside flight. His eyes locked onto hers. And today, Evelyn, you showed me exactly who you are. She felt the blood drain from her face as he went on. You saw a hat and made it personal. You embarrassed a quiet passenger because of what you assumed he believed. Will's voice grew sharper, like steel wrapped in velvet. You put your opinions above our company's values, above basic human decency. Every word landed like a hammer blow. Evelyn's hands trembled in her lap as the full weight of her mistake came crashing down. Evelyn started to speak, but Will's raised hand stopped her mid-breath. Let's get one thing straight, he said, his words crisp as a frosty wind. We serve everyone here, every passenger, every belief. That's not just policy, that's who we are. His gaze never wavered. If you can't do that, you don't belong on my team. The words landed like a punch to the chest. Evelyn's thoughts scrambled. How could she fix this? How could she? I understand, she barely whispered. Will studied her for a moment, then leaned back again, folding his hands in front of him. Will let the silence stretch before delivering his verdict. Here's your choice, he said, his voice leaving no room for negotiation. Walk away now with a clean resignation. No drama, no black mark. Or stay and prove you can change. He leaned forward slightly. But if you stay, you'll retrain from the ground up. Ethics, customer service, the works. And trust me, I'll be reviewing every evaluation. Evelyn's nails bit into her palms. Quitting meant defeat. But staying. I'll do the training, she forced out, her voice barely steady. Will gave a single nod. This is your one lifeline, Evelyn. Don't waste it. Evelyn was halfway to the door when Will's voice stopped her cold. Remember this, he said, quieter now, but just as firm. No second chance. This is it. The walkout felt endless. Coworkers who joked with her that morning now studied their shoes or suddenly found their phones fascinating. Their silence screamed louder than any gossip. This wasn't just a warning, it was a wake-up call. That red cap hadn't been the problem. Her snap judgment had. Stepping into the afternoon sun. One question looped in her head like a broken announcement. How did a simple baseball cap almost wreck her career? The real lesson? Treat everyone with the same respect you'd give the person who signs your paycheck. What would you have done in Evelyn's place? Could this situation have been avoided? Let us know in the comments. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel for more amazing tales. Until then, stay safe and take care.